Quick introduction. My name is Weir. I'm part of the packages business unit within Capgemini. I'm the CTO for the Oracle delivery unit, but I'm also sort of a global champion when it comes to APIs and microservices in Capgemini. So I get involved in many gigs around actually the world in supporting clients with API strategies and stuff like that. I'm kind of like an API junkie, as you can tell. So I do a lot of thought leadership, a lot of presentations in different forums and different presentations, like DevOps for hardcore developers, or Oracle Open World for Oracle Focus, or JavaOne for more kind of developer-oriented in the Java community. And I've written a few books. I've only put in two. That one was just published based on a delivery we did for IKEA not long ago. I'm going to talk about IKEA today. And also a book I'm writing, which is just strategy. Hopefully I'll finish it one day. I'm targeting to finish it mid next year probably. So I'm working on it. Anyways, that's just me. I'm going to talk about three things today. I don't have much time. I have like 25 minutes. I probably need 25 days, one per chapter. Just kidding. I'm going to talk about three things. One is kind of following up with Mark Daly from MuleSoft. He was talking about innovation. I want to talk a bit more as to what does it mean to deliver APIs that enable innovation, and why do you care, right? Then I'm going to talk about the API economy. You probably heard about it. The FOSS, right? I'm going to go beyond the FOSS and talk about why it matters to you and give some examples. And then I'm going to talk about two case studies. Hopefully I have enough time to cover them both. Cargill, I'm sure you know Cargill. If you don't, it's an $100 billion organization. They do most of the supply chain for agriculture worldwide. Huge company. I'm going to talk about how we're digitalizing their supply chain enabled by APIs. And then IKEA, which is also a very interesting use case that we delivered about a year and a half ago. So that's the agenda. So I'm going to crack on. So disruptive innovation or lack of adaptability and accountability, probably as well. Right, so Netflix, did it really kill Blockbuster? I don't think so. I think it's more to do with the business way of doing things and the problem to do with fees, for example, and the fact that you couldn't stream videos online. Spotify, same story. I don't think Spotify is killing, or Apple Music, or this type of streaming apps are killing the music industry. It's more to do with the way we buy music, right? You want to buy a song, right? You want to buy two songs that you like from different artists, right? Uber and taxis or Airbnb, it's not to do with trying to compete with hotels. It's just lack of availability of rooms. I mean, if you go to big conferences, you find that a room could be 400 quid a day, right? Then you go to Airbnb and you find it a lot cheaper, right? And very good places as well, because communities are actually rating, how good or bad these accommodations are. Now becoming a bit more technical. This thing is, maybe it's a battery, I don't know. Is the cloud really killing on-premise? Well, it is, of course, but the reason, it's killing it is actually because of the time frames that it traditionally took to provision infrastructure. You might remember, fill a spreadsheet and you get the virtual machine in 2 months if you're lucky, right? And now you just go to AWS or any other cloud, click, 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 and you get your VM, right? That's really the benefit here. And again, with this. And APIs and microservices, if you come from the traditional SOA background like I do, right? It's not like this is a new FOSS and it's killing SOA. It's actually the reason why you can stream videos in Netflix, for example. It's the reason you can book Ubers. It's the reason you can go to Amazon and do many of the things you're doing. It's about a way to rethinking your architecture to deliver SOA the right way, in my point of view. Completely decoupling your architecture and moving away from bottlenecks, right? And enable that scalability while still keeping the focus on business benefits. Having said that, for me, it's all about adaptability. If as a business you're not able to adapt and able to react quickly, especially to new demands of customers, then I'm sorry, but you're going to be in trouble. No one can escape that disruption that's going out there, in my view. So for me, technology by itself is not really what's disrupting businesses. It's more about not being able to adapt and become customer-centric. Use that information that you've got, right? Make it more relevant for the people that you're engaging with through multiple channels. What you don't want is to go to the website, one experience. You go to the mobile app, another experience. Then you have, actually not one app, 5 different apps all doing different things for the same company. Which app do you use? So it's that inconsistency, right? That lack of understanding of who you are as a customer, what do you care about, being able to connect the information and make it relevant for you, that's really the problem. But how do you do that? I mean, you have system for this, system for that, system for that. They're not even connected. How do you create that consistency? In IKEA, for example, one of the problems we had is 60% of the sales actually start online, but they complete inside the store. How do you connect that journey? By the way, each store has a 3 million line code Pascal-based system. They're not connected to the one that they're using for online. So how do you accomplish that? We haven't done it, by the way. I'm just saying the problem, right? Just to be clear, I don't want to set the expectation this high. Right, so that's sort of the problem, right? And APIs do have a role, because APIs are, if I can keep it simple, they are doors to information and functionality. They deliver that access. They enable you to connect. And if you expose your functionality and information to the public, then they become doors to your service and offerings. If you go to a website called Programmable Web, as of today, there is 25,035 public APIs. It might not sound a lot. Actually, imagine each API can do the equivalent thing that you can do on a website in terms of commerce and engagement. That's quite a lot, I think. So there are about 20,000 companies that went out there and said, you know what, everything you can do through a website or through phone, you can actually do it directly, electronically, without the need of a human by calling our APIs. I think that's quite impressive. And that's sort of where the API economy is coming from, and that's what it's all about. Now, if I make this work, but what happens if you don't, I'm missing one slide, or I don't know what happened. Well, anyways, yeah, what happens if that door that you design is not done properly? It's useless. That's also a problem with APIs. Sometimes you rush and say, you know what, APIs are cool, let's just do it, but you don't know why. Or you don't know what purpose it's serving, or you don't know the scope, or the capability, or how to make it available. You might end up with a door that no one can access. Great, you have an API, so what, right? No one knows that it exists. Or you have a door that might just, kill you, actually, if you're not careful, to be honest. And that's sort of the challenges that I face day to day as a practitioner in this area. I need to be careful with this thing. And that's where, API management and modern API platforms come to the rescue, sort of say. Why they help is govern the end-to-end life cycle of APIs, from the moment that you plan them, which APIs you need to discover them, to the design is important. I think Mark mentioned something about API design first. Well, you want to make sure that that door is fit for purpose, right? That people can find it. That's not actually, impossible to reach. That's the design part, and that's why there's so much emphasis in API design to make sure that you interact and you share API mocks. Not the real thing, but APIs that just are dummy, right? But consumers, like app developers, can interact with, so you get feedback early, and you don't spend 3, 4, 5 weeks doing the development only to find out, oh, by the way, you missed 5 fields. Ooh, and then those 5 fields are in this old system, right? That is an AS400 that sits in a data center that has no connectivity, right? It's only 5 fields, right? Well, good luck. Right, so these are the type of things that you want to think about. But then it's not just about building, the whole thing yourself. If there is about 20,000 APIs out there, raise your hand if you would build the new Google Maps API. Of course not. Who's gonna, go out there, see what's out there, from translations, from financial transactions, from location, right? There's absolutely APIs for everything. And if you are able to identify these APIs through public marketplace, you can actually, speed up your innovation, because you don't have to reinvent many of these things. So API lifecycle is not just about, designing and being the greatest developer to build APIs. It's about also coming up with some mechanism for your organization to go out there and leverage what's already available and work out models so you benefit from it. And I'm going to show you a very clear example that Capgemini people deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's an interesting one in a second. And of course, the industry understands this trend. And we see in the last 3 years, 6 major acquisitions. I'm missing one. Who can tell me which one? Sorry? No, Oracle bought Apiary. Maybe someone will buy Oracle, I don't know. but actually, as of, I think, July, Broadcom, a semiconductor company, bought CA, who's also a major player in the API space. A very random acquisition in my view, but it's not the first time. Actually, before TIBCO acquired Masher, Intel acquired Masher and sold it to TIBCO. So, well, it didn't go very well. So we'll see about this one. But there's a lot of movement in the market when it comes to platforms that actually deliver this sort of capability. And it's because these are the doors, right, to electronic service and offerings. And of course, as a software company, you want to have such a capability. But APIs, like doors, are of many types, right? A door to enter this building is not the same door to enter this room, right? Maybe this one doesn't have a lock. The one to enter the building will have a big lock. Try to enter a bank when it's closed, right? Impossible. APIs are the same. If APIs are providing access to information, depending on what the API is providing access to, that door may be built, designed, thought through differently. Again, back to the design. But also there are APIs, for example, in the most basic way, APIs enable connectivity. You have a backend system, an SAP, an Oracle ERP, or just a database, and you want to connect to it, and you want to provide some sort of access. Very basic. From a business value perspective, it's delivering value, but it's not straightforward to quantify. Because that API is probably used by many different purposes, and you're not able to track, is it generating money, or what is exactly the business value of it? So it's kind of, you might be able to, but it's not straightforward. As you move up the ladder, then maybe, as the MuleSoft example from Mark showed, you might be able to create an app that your coworkers, that your colleagues can use to become more productive on the move, scan things, or make decisions on the fly. And then you're all of a sudden making better value of this connectivity, these APIs that you created to just get access to something. But that doesn't stop there. You go up the ladder, right? And then you say, oh, hold on one second, I can use the same type of APIs to go omni-channel. I want my customers to find me, all my partners to find me online, to find me on Twitter, to find me on a mobile app, to find me on Alexa, to find me on Siri, to find me on WhatsApp, to find me on Facebook chat. And the story will go on and on and on as technology evolves. You want to be omni-channel. But it doesn't stop there. What if you can start trading? And this is the Cargill case study. It's about B2B, hardcore B2B, I would say. You want to optimize your complete supply chain. EDI, great. EDI can be expensive, can be complicated. In fact, smaller niche vendors, right, like the ones in India or China, emerging economies, they don't have that infrastructure to engage, for example, in a complex EDI fact type of integration. What if you just create an API that enables trading? And then the holy grail, I like to call it, which is make money on the back of APIs. What if you can monetize on your information assets? And this one is better explained by showing some examples. So let me just go there. I forgot one point. Don't think that because you've done these three, you're cool or you're like leading edge. Actually, this is survival. Many organizations have mastered that already in all sort of industries. It's the edge, right? These two is where you're really kind of differentiating yourself. And getting there requires some sort of journey, some sort of strategy. You need to look at APIs like products. APIs are something that's delivering something, right, that someone wants to buy. So you need to think of it from a business perspective, not more technical. And let me give some examples on this. What should you care? How much revenue, business revenue, money, percentage-wise, do you think Salesforce generates on the back of APIs? By the way, the sources are there. I assume you get the slides. So you can double-check what I'm saying so you check that I'm not lying. Anyways, how much revenue do you think Salesforce generates via APIs? Someone, percentage-wise, a number. 90%. It's not that much for 60, but this is 2015. It might be a 90 round. So Salesforce.com, they have their marketplace and they have the Force.com platform, right? And a lot of this, side applications that you can acquire or use in the Force.com platform are actually leveraging Salesforce APIs. Right, and Salesforce will charge you, right, for using those APIs, right? So they're making a lot of revenue on the back of APIs. But this is the example I like the most, and it is actually 90%. Expedia. So I'm sure all of you know Expedia, right? The travel booking agency, right? So you can actually, do everything, absolutely everything you do in Expedia, you do it through APIs, and I'm going to show you an example in a second. And then eBay, which is not appearing, maybe they don't do it anymore, or maybe they do, but 60% of eBay, is done via APIs. But I do encourage you to Google eBay API strategy, and then you see a video of the CEO of eBay talking about why part of their business strategy is to create APIs to target new ecosystems. So for eBay, APIs is not just a feature, something that IT requires. For eBay, they see APIs as a competitive business strategy to be able to, be ahead of the competition. Because if they can reach to audiences of developers worldwide that can create spin-off apps that use eBay on the back to sell stuff and buy stuff, obviously it's also beneficial for eBay, and that's what they're trying to do. So back to my example on Agencia, right? This is actually our internal booking website, so travel booking website. If you work for Capgemini, you know what I'm talking about. When you're searching for hotels, you might think that it's our Agencia website doing it. In fact, you can see, I took a screenshot because it's quite interesting. Searching Expedia. So what's going on in the background is that our own internal travel booking application is paying Expedia to search for hotels and then book hotels. In fact, I was in an Indian trip once, and they told me, well, you need to talk to, I was complaining, I don't remember what I was doing, but I was told, you need to talk to Expedia, your booking agency. And that's when I found out, hold on one second, Expedia, I'm doing it through Agencia. Well, anyways, the bottom line is, this is a very, very simple example of API economy and how you can leverage functionality so you don't reinvent the wheel. Right, but then if you put everything I'm talking about together, right, and try and translate this into capabilities from a platform perspective, what do you need to achieve this, to deliver this type of visions that I was talking about? So at the bottom, right, who knows microservices architectures? Raise your hand. Well, about half the audience, so I'm going to give a very, very simple definition. It's a modern way of building functionality, business capabilities, that's very loosely coupled and highly scalable. So you don't have the issue that Twitter had in 2010 World Cup, that Twitter collapsed because they were using a monolithic integration platform. So it's a way of taking that functionality and make it so decoupled that it almost doesn't depend on anything else but itself. That's not true. It needs compute, it needs other things, right? But as a concept, it was actually conceived by Adrian Cockford from Netflix, right? When trying to scale Netflix, right? And Netflix, House of Cards, when it was at the peak, 30% of the internet traffic was actually House of Cards. So how do they actually accomplish that, Well, it's this type of concept, right? And the future, APIs, you cannot control demand. APIs provide access in real time. You're going to be hitting that API from multiple channels. You need to be able to scale. You cannot say, you may be able to protect, put some throttling, put some limits, right? But at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to predict exactly what's going to be your throughput. So you need to be able to scale. You need to be able to have a fabric, a core that enables you to deliver some of these non-functional requirements. Kubernetes, for example, is a very niche, well, I wouldn't say niche anymore, but it's a very interesting technology to look at to enable this type of fabric, right? And then things like service meshes using Istio, Envoy, Ribbon, thing. Now I'm going to technical. API exposure and management. So this service, this business capability is just that, it's a business capability, but on its own means nothing. You need to put it into context and you need to make it available and discoverable. So people can know that, okay, I have this API for this API for that, and I can go out and use it. But also you want to manage it, right? To make sure that the APIs are secure, that you can deploy them, that you have visibility over what's going on. Is the API down or not? How much is it being used? Is it not being used? Do you need to retire it? But self-service, that's something Mark also touched upon. Do you want to allow developers, right, and consumers to do a lot of these activities on their own? You don't want middle tier. You don't want kind of a heavy process that's going to slow down the whole process of actually doing the consumption or the development of an API. So self-service, right, is critical in this type of modern platform. So not only you want to be able to log on to some sort of developer portal, find an API, and start using it, but you also want to enable communities of developers, right, to even build their own APIs. There will be some sort of governance, right? You do need it, but it doesn't have to be heavyweight. You want to give that freedom. And that's sort of the hipster, I think it was mentioned, the hipster culture, I would say triggered by Spotify and the Spotify engineering culture. If you haven't seen it, I recommend that you Google Spotify engineering culture and you see what I'm talking about. It's quite amazing and remarkable how they actually created a whole culture organizationally wise based on Agile and this type of architectural models. And lastly, and Ron Toledo from our group CTO for Insights and Data was talking about, gave a lot of examples on the API for artificial intelligence. If your APIs are providing all this access, and you can visualize who's calling these APIs, when, why, how, imagine the value that you can make of that data if you can understand it and analyze it. You can make decisions, right? If your API is providing you access to e-commerce portals and you have a global e-commerce portal and you can see trends, right? Maybe you can, again, I'm not an expert in e-commerce per se from a business standpoint, but certainly someone that is going to make use of that data. And what you want to do is make sure that they can make use of that data. I don't have much time, so I'm going to briefly talk about Cargill supply chain case study. So their problem, I'll summarize it. They have a moving landscape. Yes, they are trying to move to SAP S/4HANA, global single instance, that's what they want. But right now, I think 80% of their landscape is supported by 30-year-old AS400 systems. And the problem that the CIO came to me with, she said, I cannot wait until we have a single instance of SAP S/4HANA for me to start digitalizing and innovating. How can I do this before I complete my consolidation, my single instance? So in a nutshell, what we did is a global API strategy, right, that would enable not just the transition, right, from the old to the new, but would also collect data from some of these old systems. We couldn't connect directly because they couldn't handle the load, right? We adopted some microservices principles, right, to obtain the data, right, and then make it available in different geographies. We just delivered Vietnam, so Vietnam farmers can actually start trading, or at least in their contracts online. Everything has been paper-based. Now we're starting with Brazil, and my team is now working on the API designs for Brazil. And then it's North America, and then it's a global deployment. How did we do it? Well, first of all, we went into an aggressive 8-week strategy to understand what the problem was. I think we had about 75 workshops overall with different geographies and different stakeholders. And on the back of that, we created a solution, as I said, based on principles like API-led and microservices, right? And we delivered a hybrid architecture that would allow us to deploy APIs in different geographies, different data centers. And then IKEA, I think I'm doing well with time, and maybe I can take some questions. Similar requirement, but I would say a bit more hardcore. IKEA, within each store, they run an ERP, actually. And the reason they do that is a home-built ERP. And the reason they do that is because certain decisions, market-wise, are made inside the store. So it's the store manager that will make those decisions. And for whatever reason, they didn't want to depend from anything outside the store. So each store has a small data center. So there's about 400 stores worldwide. So imagine 2 environments, non-pro and pro, just to keep it simple, right? They want APIs inside the store. We kind of estimated 1,000 gateways. So a platform that could scale to support this magnitude. We haven't implemented that yet, as I said earlier on. But when we did the product selection and the study, we did evaluate that and started understanding the complexities of this type of deployment. We went live about a year and a half ago. Now the whole IKEA product transformation, there's a massive program going on for rethinking how product information is presented, is underpinned by this platform. I have a team of about 15 people now going to Sweden almost every week working on this. Well, many benefits, right? Like, for example, now they can access information via APIs, core product data via APIs in real time, as opposed to waiting for a batch that only happens once a day.